Welcome to Previously on X-Men, the podcast that looks at X-Men comics, movies, shows, characters, and more. I'm Hilary.
I'm Eric, and I've made a huge mistake because I watched the entire Wolf's Rain anime series in preparation for this.
In what? What?
I thought we were talking about Wolf's Rain, the Japanese anime about wolves that look like people. And
yes.
so I watched all 26 episodes plus the 4-episode OVA in preparation for this episode.
Well, I definitely see the confusion. It makes sense and is comprehensible.
Are we talking about anything about that? What episodes are we talking about?
We're talking about the X-Men animated series. Right. The episodes, the Phalanx Covenant, which I don't think has any wolves of any kind.
Right.
And then also Stormfront, also no wolves.
Okay.
0 wolves, as far as I can tell.
Well, I have about a notebook page of notes for Wolf's Rain, so I'll just sit here and have a good time.
Okay, you put in any information from that you think is relevant to what we're talking about.
I'm kidding. I did both.
You did both?
Yeah.
So you did two-parters of the animated series and an entire anime series.
Yeah, I watched all of Wolf's Rain. I got a Crunchyroll subscription, so I've been watching a lot of anime. Been watching a lot of anime that's been on my list since I was a teenager.
Ooh, is it all meeting your expectations?
Wolf's Rain was pretty good, yeah. Witch Hunter Robin was fine. Excel Saga was very funny. Noir was cool, but a lot different than I thought it was.
Oh, I've seen Noir.
Yeah, it's been a good time.
That was one of the DVDs that I got back in the day.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like going to Crunchyroll and just it all being there because I was like, back in the day, 20 years ago,
long time ago.
If I liked an anime but wanted to see all the anime, I was spending $120 to buy 6 DVDs.
Scouring eBay, trying to find what you're looking for.
The first Amazon purchase I have, if you go all the way back to my beginning, is me paying like $180 to get all of Trigun.
That's worth it though.
Because the box set was like, yeah, here's the 7 individual DVDs with 4 episodes each. But
was it like giant, like the really thick?
Yeah, it was
plastic container.
It wasn't. They weren't doing thin packs. It was just 7 individual DVDs in a box.
Yep. And then sometimes you would get it that it was actually. That's sometimes you'd get like somebody videotaping the screen that they had and mailing you.
Oh my word, yeah, those.
Yeah.
But yeah, there were all the animes I just watched had been on the list because they had been on my Amazon wish list forever. I'm like, I'm gonna buy these one of these days, sight unseen. Just buy it and hope I like the show, because that's what you had to do.
Back in the day. Well, I'm happy for you.
My mom, 20-something Christmases ago, had got me the X-Men animated series on VHS, and they were all taped by somebody, like as they were happening. So that's how I.
So sad when it comes out that way.
Yeah, well, once I got the DVDs, and now the Disney Plus. We got Disney Plus again for a little bit, so.
I got the full VHS set of animated series at a yard sale a few years ago, so
yeah, nice.
Fulfilled that dream.
All right, we should probably talk about X-Men. Yeah,
we're talking. So we have two-parters that we're talking about, but I don't think that we'll have an issue.
Yeah, I didn't realize we were talking two-parters in one episode.
Yes.
You want to get done. I
want to just boom, 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 get it in there.
I thought we were recording 2 episodes of the podcast today.
I mean, we could, but honestly, like, as I was watching both of these 2-parters separately, I was like, why did they do 2-parters? Like, I do not understand why they did that. Yeah, based on, like, how much content we got going on. But we're starting out with the Phalanx Covenant, parts 1 and 2.
Yeah.
This originally aired on September 7, 1996, was directed by Larry Houston, written by Stephen Melching and David McDermott.
Yeah, so these days, this is counted as the first episodes of season 5.
Yes, so we're into our new season.
This is part of that season that they thought they were done with Beyond Good and Evil. They thought they were going out with that 4-parter, and they got picked up for another, 11 episodes.
And they're like, holy crap, we got to make some episodes.
So
maybe that's why these are 2-parters. They want to spread them out.
Maybe, yeah, it definitely one more than the other feels definitely stretched too thin. But there's some stuff about it that I don't quite understand either if this was supposed to come out after Beyond Good and Evil. We'll get to that.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so the first episode starts with Sabretooth wreaking
He's
havoc.
just going crazy but a lot of the shots, like he picks up a car and throws it, that seems like pilot footage.
Oh, yeah.
When the very first episode of this show where we see Sabretooth throwing a car and people being like, these mutants are out of control.
Well, yeah, we get a pretty, the bystanders being all, oh, it's the mutants.
Yeah.
They're a menace, whatever.
But anyways, they bring Sabretooth. It's Beast and Jubilee who pick up Sabretooth, which...
Yeah, Beast and Jubilee go in the jet to get Sabretooth.
Bring
they
him
dump
in.
some knockout gas, they knock everybody out, and then they grab Sabretooth and bring him in again to the X Mansion. How many times has he been a prisoner
This
in the
will be
X
the
Mansion?
third time he's been brought in as like a prisoner. They talk about how they're going to keep him there. They're going to turn him in, but Professor X wants to try one more time to rehabilitate him.
Yeah, which, so he's unconscious, and they're like, we don't have to worry about him until the morning, so let's go,
then his
whatever.
eye opens.
Ooh, and he's all phalanxy.
He looks weird.
We see him kind of break into the computer somehow, remotely.
Wolverine finds out that he's there because Jubilee's just talking about it very out loud.
Yeah,
and
he they come into the kitchen and he's just like, "Wait a minute."
He like breaks the bread against the counter. He's like, "Where is he?" So he goes to Professor X and tells him he's got these issues, and Professor X
was like a gymnast, by the way, because it's in the gym and he's like doing day. What is that? It's parallel bars or something. He's like doing some gymnastics.
But Wolverine says, "Fine," but as long as he's here, I'm the warden or whatnot. And I was like, wow, Wolverine has grown these episodes. Because that first episode, he literally had to like leave the mansion and then all that. But he's grown. Now he just stabs walls. And
he's like, fine, but I'm not happy about it.
Yeah.
But then he goes to Sabretooth in the... I mean, what is this? Like a brig or something? Whatever the place is that they keeping
the holding cell, yeah.
Holding cell. And he goes and he smells Sabretooth. And although it is Sabretooth's body, he can tell it's not his mind.
Yeah, he says, he's like, I don't know who you are, but you're not Sabretooth.
He can tell. He can tell something weird's going on with Sabretooth. So then we see Xavier getting a distress signal.
Yeah. It's so funny because he's like, who are you? Yeah. What are you saying? The guy's like, Xavier, help. It's like, who do you think sounds like this? He's always got that like sound.
And you could see the silhouette with like his...
Yeah, and Xavier's like, who are you?
But then it turns out that it's Sinister. And he is appropriately shocked that Sinister is sending this thing. And Sinister's saying, like, someone attacked my lab, but you need to know because, like, it's an infection of some kind. And this is a danger in general.
He needs help. He's everything. They captured his men and all this stuff. So he's in a desperate spot that he's calling the X-Men for help.
His men, would you say his men are perhaps the nasty boys?
Yeah.
Would you say?
Yeah, so I'm sorry. Not his men. His boys. His boys.
My boy's been caught.
Xavier, my boys.
My
boys, Xavier.
Save my boys.
They're so nasty.
So Xavier is like, I guess we're going to help. But before he can do anything, he's snatched by a tentacle.
Yeah. You know what's funny? If you look at... It's obviously not the thing, but if you look at this scene in context of the craziness that is... the Krakoa era, the House of Powers of X and everything, it does make sense that Sinister at this point would be calling Xavier for help.
Thought about that too during throughout this whole episode. I thought about that with Sinister
very retroactively, but we're nearing the end of that era too. So at time of recording,
this is the beginning of the entire mansion just kind of getting taken over.
Yeah, Beast goes into the hall, and the whole team is already captured.
Yeah, we don't even see it happen.
Technically it's Wolverine's fault because he just let Sabretooth out.
Oh, did he?
Well, because he was like, "I don't know who you are," so he opened the door. And then,
Oh
he's
boy.
getting caught and all this stuff. If he had just left the door shut, he might have had some time.
Wolverine.
It's kind of a twist on the comics because at the time, Sabretooth was a prisoner. Or he was, he was in that rehabilitation stage in the mansion in
Mhm.
the 90s. So he was there and he was there and unaffected and he was helping out. But in this, he's patient zero for
Yeah.
for the mansion.
Typhoid Mary.
Yeah,
I
she's
think he
not
would
here.
prefer that term.
But yeah, it caught him fast, and so is just Beast on his own, and he jumps out, and he's going on a little adventure now.
Yeah, he gets into a Jeep and something appears to attach itself to the
Uh huh.
Jeep, and we find out
It's
that he has a
Warlock.
stowaway. It's Warlock who has fled his planet
Uh
with
huh.
his life mate and crashed
Yep.
on Earth.
Yep. And that she's the one causing all of this because government people came and took her over.
Yeah, so we don't really
Yeah.
know exactly why anything happened, but he got out
Mm-hmm.
and of the crash, and his
Mm-hmm.
life mate. Do we know his life mate's name? Is she just
I
life
can't
mate?
remember. Yeah.
She was unconscious or something in the crash, and
Mhm.
yeah, government people came and took her
And
away,
he
and
was
now
too
she's like
scared
taking
to
over
save her.
because he's a chicken.
Yeah, he said he was too scared. Um,
So what seems
but
to be happening is that this Phalanx, whatever
mhm,
that is taking over technology and it takes over living tissue, but for some reason it seems to have trouble with mutant tissue.
yes.
And so
It's
now it's
basically the
like paying
Borg.
specific, it is exactly the Borg. They say you
It's
will
the
be
Borg.
assimilated so many
Yeah.
times.
Yeah, it's just the Borg if the Borg were yellow.
Yellow Borg.
Yeah.
Yellow circuit board.
Um, because they do. They take everybody over and then they got that yellow and black kind of digital look, the techno organic vibe going on. We see that in the city, the Empire State Building has been completely converted by the Phalanx. And this is kind of a bit of the Inferno storyline where
Hmm.
Limbo people have taken it over with the organic virus as well. But that's kind of the only allusion to that, I think. It's so funny. So Beast contacts Forge, of all the people.
Yes. Well, he specifically says, he's like, I'm an expert in biochemical engineering. I think he says something
Right.
like
He
that.
wants somebody who knows a lot about mechanical?
Tech.
No,
Tech
not.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So he contacts him and he says, come by yourself and all this. He's like, do you know any place safe? And I mean, Forge basically chooses a Chili's,
Yeah,
but
just like a cute little diner. Well,
yeah,
because we've sort of entered this moment of the episode where it feels kind of like body snatchery because like Beast
yeah.
has just contacted the president and been like, "Listen, there's this
Hmm.
thing happening, come get us, but like secretly and quietly."
Yeah,
And
he
then it
says,
turns out
both
that
of you
he
come
was,
here.
yeah,
And
and
Warlock is like, you didn't tell him about me. Why did he say both? He's like, oh
yeah.
my stars.
So the president, is taken
Hmm.
over by the Phalanx, and so now
Yep.
Beast is like, "Who can I go to? Who can I trust?" And Warlock, I
Forge.
guess, can tell if
He can only
someone is
tell in
Phalanx
person,
or
though.
not.
He
Yeah,
can't
so he can
tell over
tell when
TV.
they meet Forge at the
Hmm.
Chili's
Yep.
that Forge is the real deal. So Forge, and he's brought with him Quicksilver.
Quicksilver. He wasn't supposed to bring anybody, but he brought Quicksilver, probably because he still didn't understand what Beast was talking about. You see somebody leave that area, and
Very subtle appearance.
it's a very sneaky, sinister figure.
Yes.
He's dressed like the Shadow. If every time I
He
saw him,
walks
I'm like,
right past them, and they
yep,
don't have any.
nope.
I feel like it would be hard to
I
not
don't know
notice.
what he's doing. Like, did he just come and order a coffee and then was like, wait a second, was that Hank McCoy?
I gotta get out of here. Excuse me.
But we do find out that it's sinister and that everybody is now coming after them.
Yeah, because like all the townspeople start attacking the
Mm-hmm.
diner, and like the waitress is like, "I'll get you," and everybody's going.
So one
And
of
so they have
them,
to run.
right? One of the Phalanx gets in touch with Forge's robotic leg, his mechanical leg, his
Right.
prosthetic, and that dissolves. But Forge is fine. He doesn't get caught. He just loses the leg, and then he says, I'm only going to slow you down. So Warlock turns into the leg, and
Mm-hmm.
this with the Xavier in the gym is just a reminder of one thing this show does very well, which is it never really makes a big deal about handicaps, but it also doesn't ignore them. Like
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
Xavier is knocked out of his chair, he's crawling with his arms. When he's in the gym, he's got the bands around his legs and he's using his arms. With this scene, Forge doesn't have a leg, but they're not like, oh, if only I wasn't. It's just like, okay, quick solution, let's go. It's just this thing that acknowledges that these handicaps are there, but doesn't.
It doesn't limit the characters to those.
It doesn't limit the characters because of that. Like Xavier is usually everywhere the X-Men need to go.
Yeah.
And it also doesn't really, like, the characters don't lament it. I don't think Xavier has ever. We never learn how he got in his wheelchair. We never learn how he lost the use of his legs.
Is that true?
I think so. I could be wrong. It's been so long since we watched season 1.
Yeah, I don't remember.
But yeah,
that is a really cool thing that they do.
And then we get a to be continued because we find out the whole, like, everything is being taken over.
Everything's being taken over, and the Phalanx, I guess, are building a spire to call to their home planet or whatever and get more people over. Oh, and Pietro was, they got Pietro. So he was there for about 5 minutes for no apparent reason.
They got Quicksilver.
They got him.
And episode 2, I don't know how this opens. I know I liked seeing Forge because it's nice seeing, like, modern day Forge interacting with the X-Men, because it's really
his voice though. His voice is so, like, old man-y.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same voice actor, but he doesn't really, like, gruff it up either era, so he always just sounds the same.
Yeah. Well, when it starts, it basically comes, like, right back to where they were when the previously one ended. So they're just in the jet. Phalanx is collecting data on the mutants. They're trying to figure out what the plan is.
Yeah, our team right now is Forge, Beast, Warlock, Amelia Voight, and Mr. Sinister.
Yeah, what's Amelia's deal? Because I could not for the life of me remember her.
Avalon. She was the Sanctuary episode. She had romantic relations with the professor, but then
I gathered that, but I couldn't remember. She left him because
she didn't want to do all that stuff. But now she's a nurse or a doctor, and she could teleport with smoke.
Okay, cool.
She was one of the acolytes.
They go to Muir Island because it's isolated and has labs and stuff. And that's where they find Amelia because she's helping stuff. I don't know.
The Phalanx. The Phalanx. Sorry, it's a dumb name. The Phalanx also show up there. Banshee is there. And also in the comic story that this is based on, Banshee's scream is very effective against them. And here it really does nothing and he gets captured.
He gets captured and they decide they have to leave. They get on the jet, but he gets captured, and so Moira is like, "No, I have to whatever."
I know, and Sinister basically pushes her out.
Yeah, which
I love it.
He's Sinister, so what are you gonna do?
It's you fool! He's very cowardly in this episode. He's
he's in it for himself. Yeah,
he talks about how they're trying to figure out what the Phalanx want. And they realize they're trying to learn about mutants and everything, and that's why they attacked his lab, because it was the most thorough DNA lab of all mutantdom.
Yes,
so that's why they had gone after Sinister.
Kind of a leap forward in that, and we periodically get little shots back to where the X-Men have been captured, and, like, I guess Wolverine. They focus on Wolverine because of his healing factor, and they think that it'll help them to assimilate.
Yeah, because they're not worried. They think they're going to be able to assimilate mutants. They just think it's going to take longer, and they're using Wolverine as the test subject because he's able to fight it even more so with the healing ability. It's Cameron Hodge who says, "We haven't met, but I know some friends of yours from Genosha." And I was like, what? uh, but he was in the Slave Island episodes.
Yeah, and he's like a weird head on the
Yeah, so they
sliminess
play
of
with
the
some stuff
Phalanx.
here because in this he says he loses an arm and a leg because of the flooding that happened during when Gambit and Rogue and Jubilee broke it up and everything. You remember there was that huge flood from
Yeah.
breaking the Master Mold issue, and I think that's the one where he's like, "I am still plugged in," and then the wave came in. Anyway, so that's how he lost that, and then the Phalanx take him over and give him this body that's just a head. In the comics, he made a deal with those of Limbo for immortality, but not
Oh.
invincibility. So he can live forever, but he's lost like all his body.
Oh my gosh.
So that's how
That's
he ends up
dark.
just a head there. Yeah.
So it's just a
Um,
theme of him being just ahead. There's a moment like when we're first seeing the Phalanx kind of at their core,
mhm,
and you have the whole like a column with like a whole bunch of different heads like
yep.
talking at the same time and all this stuff. My son was walking through at this time and he just stopped and looked at it and was like, I hate that. I was like, me too, baby.
The voice actor for Cameron Hodge was the original voice actor for Cameron Hodge, who has also been
Continuity.
here as Archangel. So he's a regular voice actor here. He's the Stephen Oyamete,
Oh,
the guy
yes.
that was also the voice of Beetlejuice.
Right. Yeah.
They go to Antarctica. Amelia says she knows somebody. They go to Antarctica and open the door, and there's this really cool reveal that's a lot more stylish than the show sometimes is able to pull off, where we know who it is, but he's in shadow, but you get this big room, and the music is very like I don't know how to describe it. It's just very appropriate for this scene where it's like, here's
Mhm.
a big character just
Yeah.
lonesome and giving up on everything.
Yeah, and he's, like, on a raised platform and stuff, and you're looking at him from
Yeah.
below, and he looks very grand.
It's a cool entrance, and it's Magneto, everybody. And
Magneto!
it's the real Magneto voice.
Yay! Yep, David Hemblem's back as Magneto.
He sounds great. But the other continuity thing is he says after Asteroid M, he's kind of just given up.
Yeah.
And so it seems like that was a while ago for him to be in this state.
So maybe time has passed.
Who knows? But yeah, he's got a beard. He's just been there, and they can't convince him. He doesn't care about the world anymore. He's like, let it. Who cares? The world is lost. And it
Yep.
turns out, because Quicksilver was taking, he's willing to fight, even though if he hadn't helped, Quicksilver would have eventually been taken over anyway.
So he's on board, and they are gonna go.
They're going to the Spire. I stopped taking notes because it seemed like the end happens really fast here.
Yeah, it does wrap up pretty quick because they're on the end game now. They're gonna go, and they're gonna fight the Phalanx at the core.
They go to the base. Magneto's the reason they can get into the base. Sinister is blasting stuff and, helping out. And the whole thing is that they have a virus, or they created an antidote for the Phalanx.
They created a virus that if the Phalanx assimilates it, it'll infect the Phalanx and make it inert.
Right. They need somebody to be infected with it, so they give it to Warlock, who's still feeling guilty about this being his fault.
It is entirely his fault.
Yeah. And they go in, they free Polaris and Jean for some reason, I guess just to help.
They have like a whole strategic order to do this because like Jean is supposed to hold up the force field that they have, and Lorna is supposed to help, Magneto do Magneto things.
So they
and
do
then
it.
they get Cyclops, and he starts blasting.
It's so funny because Sinister is the one to free him, and he just instantly shoots at him.
Yeah, not even a pause. They're like, wait, no, hang on.
Yeah, and then you get Sinister all like prissy about it. He's like, you jerk, you you idiot.
But then, okay, so they do a whole kind of like play acting thing where they're in the shield, and then Magneto's like, "Oh no, I have to strengthen it. It's so hard.
Can't do it."
And so then Warlock falls out. And then the Phalanx is like, haha, and they go and they assimilate. I guess he can't be assimilated though, because he's one of
He
them.
just goes
Whatever
back
it is.
yes. Yeah.
They bring him into themselves, and pretty quick, like right away things start deteriorating and like going back to normal, and you sort of flash around the world and everything is just going back to normal.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's basically like that's it. They've defeated the Phalanx.
Yeah.
Warlock is like, "What about life mate? Life mate anywhere?"
Yeah. And
And
Lifemate's there, and he's
he's there.
happy. And she says, I can't remember anything. He's like, everything's good. Don't worry about it. I
Nothing
definitely
horrible has
tried to
happened.
help. Don't worry.
Well, he did eventually. He put himself on the
Yes.
line.
But it's very oh, don't ask any questions.
Yep, yep. But
Everything's
happy
good.
ending. I guess everything's fine. There's no lasting consequence to any of this Phalanx
Hmm.
stuff that has happened. The X-Men kind of regroup outside the building.
Sinister slinks away.
Magneto's with them.
It's so funny because Cyclops says, where's Sinister? And you just see Sinister running into an alley
Yeah, and
right
Cyclops sort
behind
of
him.
starts to go after him, and someone stops him, and then they just
Jean
move on.
stops him. She just wants to go home.
It's like, just let him. And Magneto's still there, but he's like, yeah, well, I don't think we're all gonna get along anyway. No, we work together.
Yes, because Professor X says, like, who would have thought this threat would be the thing that brings us all together and shows what we can do? And Magneto's like, I see no mutant solidarity here.
I mean, there was literal mutant solidarity, but okay.
Yep.
Okay, Magneto,
Yep.
you go sulk.
I will.
So Warlock's like, hey, I guess I'll leave. Can you guys help me get out of here? Forge is going to build him a ship to get him back to his planet. Magneto and Quicksilver are reunited. Very happy at the end there. And that is the end
Yep.
of the Phalanx Covenant.
Yes. Part 2 is very quick. I feel like part 1 is really good. I think it's strong, especially with like the slow build of who's being taken over.
Yeah, that is a cool thing.
The fun little asides like a Sinister calling for help and then joining. And I'm always down for a good body snatchers riff.
Mm-hmm.
And also this kind of stuff where like the whole world is being taken over reminds me of that DuckTales episode where
Woo!
the Midas touch, where the whole world is slowly becoming gold and they have to stop it.
Yeah.
That always stuck with me as a kid. Like, what was that? Whoa.
Yeah. Some sort of infection just like spreading around the entire world. Can you even imagine?
Part 2, I still like part 2. It's got some good stuff like the Magneto reveal and
Yeah.
the weirdo Cameron Hodge stuff. But I prefer that like slower, eerie nighttime build of the first one. But for the most part, I like this two-parter.
Yeah, I think it's pretty fun. I did have trouble justifying the two separate episodes. Like, it just doesn't really like. I think that they could have done more with like the slow burn or like different
Mhm.
elements that they sort of touch on. But if they weren't going to do more, then they didn't have to do as much.
Yeah,
Like
it
for the
would have to
level that they
be.
went into things, I felt like they probably could have just squeezed it into one.
Yeah, because really they're on the run for a little bit and then they go in for the attack. And I mean,
Right.
that's really what you're going to do with something like this, but yeah, the on the run bit could have been a little bit more extreme. You could have had more people in the initial running part who then get
Yeah.
captured.
Yeah, going straight to the president and finding out pretty quickly
Yeah.
that this is a global or like, a widespread
Yeah.
issue. This happened faster than I would have wanted.
Yeah. But for the most part, I still enjoyed it.
It was fun, and
Uh
they managed to have Warlock not be devastatingly irritating.
yeah, I thought he was going to be. He's a hard design in general because of how he was originally created in the comics.
Mhm.
Bill Sinkovich. I probably said that name incredibly wrong. I'm sorry. That design in the New Mutants when he first appears is just, bananas and very atmospheric. And then everybody else who's
Mhm.
trying to draw him is like, I don't know. He's got one big eye and one little eye.
That does it. He's recognizable.
But yeah, he could have been very like, oh, Self-Friend has never had coffee. He could have been a Looney Tunes character.
Yeah, I
but he
think there
wasn't.
was only one Awooga moment, so
He
it
did
wasn't too
have a
bad.
scene where his eyes popped out. Yeah.
Yep. Mhm,
But
mhm. Okay, so that's our first two-parter of the episode. The next
yeah.
one is
Ugh.
Stormfront, which
Ugh.
I understand you are not a fan of.
I'm not a fan of these two episodes. And I'm not a fan of the original story in the comics. I'm not a fan of this world. or these well, let's just do it. Let's
Let's
just
just
talk
get
about it.
in.
There's
Let's
a
just do
crazy
it.
storm going on. The X-Men are in a jet. Everybody's blaming the storm on the mutants. Storm is like she's acting like she does with her claustrophobia, but she's really reacting to the weather. She's talking about how it's not from Earth and she can't control it and she can't sense it. And
Yeah.
Jubilee is like, I'll help you.
Yeah, Jubilee is sort of like tied to Storm this entire time. Like
Yeah.
she's very empathetic with her. She's very kind of responsible.
Storm jumps out of the plane
Yeah.
and Jubilee is going to go right after her. And I'm like, what are you planning to do?
She's just going to jump out. She'll just jump out and see what happens.
And she's constantly like, we need to help Storm. And I guess for me, I'm just like, well, isn't Storm trying to fix the weather?
Yeah, she goes out and she's like saying her stuff about like wind, stop being windy and all that stuff. And I guess the other X-Men just sort of accept that like
Well, they're trying
she's
to
going to do
land the
her own
plane.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they won't let Jubilee go and die to help her. And they have a whole huge crash landing.
Yeah, because of that. But it turns out the storm isn't really a storm. It's a portal. And it's Archon.
Yeah, he like presses a button and the storm goes away. So it's like he was drawing her out by making this horrible storm happen.
Ugh.
And like putting people in danger just to like get her.
I guess if you like this kind of, if you like the pulpy Herculoids, John Carter meets Conan the Barbarian kind of sci-fi pulp stuff, you might enjoy this more than me. But as soon as Archon shows up, I'm like, I hate this. I hate this character design. I hate this world. We're going to space, but
it's like a different dimension, though.
It has nothing to do with the X-Men at all. So it's not even like when we have to deal with the Shi'ar, because usually that's connected to Jean or Xavier or something. Here, we're just going to whatever the name is called.
This is basically Polemicus. It's Polemicus.
Polemicus.
And there's a lot of sort of like ancient Greek, Roman vibes in like the architecture and his costume and stuff. And they basically just, for the next 2 episodes, do Star Trek original series episode.
Yeah,
like,
it's a Star Trek original, right?
It's beat for beat, just exactly the kind of thing that would happen.
Yeah.
So
what do you mean?
Archon
walked on the grass and now she has to be put to death.
No,
those are the laws.
That's the law. We can't go against the law. Archon is the ruler of Polemicus. He kidnaps Storm because.
Did you write that down, or did you just remember? Because
I remembered it because I thought Polemicus was an interesting name because it's playing off like polemics, which is a word. But
what is polemics?
It's like arguing in kind of like a forceful way, you know, like a kind of attacking way.
A little bit.
Yeah, it fits.
That's so funny.
But so he tricks her into coming and also sort of kidnaps her, and he's being very like manipulating and gaslighty with her, and like, oh, there's this wonderful person and my people are suffering and I forgive me for doing all these horrible things because I just needed you. I was just so desperate.
She throws one of the little beads he has that she can tell, I guess, is the teleporter down where they're going to find her comm, or at least where she was last.
Before they cross over, so the X-Men can find her.
And they do, and Wolverine attacks it because he's angry, and it turns out he opened the portal, and he jumps through the portal as does Cyclops and Jubilee. Does Beast? No.
I don't think so. I actually don't remember, but I know Xavier does it because he stays back and is like, into the unknown. And then there's a commercial break. Can we talk for a second about Wolverine in these episodes?
Okay.
Because right out of the gate, he is showing, I think, particular concern for Storm.
Oh, sure.
Which is maybe interesting in light of other situations with Wolverine and Storm.
Though maybe it doesn't come across as super concerned because Jubilee is at 110% with her concern.
She is, but I guess Wolverine feels like he's acting like not jealous, but like
that's true.
He's just very protective of Storm. And
You're right. Yeah,
kind of stepping to the Archon guy.
It's definitely kind of like playing on what we know from the One Man's Worth episode.
think it's gotta be.
Yeah.
But so they find the portal, they get through the portal.
They have a big fight.
Well, we flash over to Storm figuring out what's going on with the planet, and she's like, "The planet is dying. There's something with the rings of the planet that are supposed to help, and that's dying." And she
Yeah.
notices that there's some sort of generator, some power generator that seems to be
All
causing
you
all
have
of
to do
this.
is turn it off, she says.
Listen, I spent the whole however long these 2 episodes are, I would just be like, "Just turn the thing off. Just turn off the thing. Just
Yeah.
turn off the thing.
Yeah.
Turn it off."
So the X-Men have this big fight, and they wreck something, and Cyclops says, "I hope you weren't the Chamber of Commerce."
Yeah, because they come out somewhere else in the city, and like the townspeople kind of like
I
come out
guess
swinging.
I don't get it.
Like,
Why?
what's happening?
But why the Chamber of Commerce of all the things he could
Well,
suggest?
I he's attempting humor, Eric.
I know, it's just like, I hope you're not the Chamber of Commerce? I don't know.
Oh, like a welcoming committee
Oh, right. But
or
why the
something.
Chamber?
I guess I don't know. I mean, that's a sort of a thing that I don't know. We don't have to get into it. But yes, so the locals come and attack, and we've got locals in like, garb that looks like archons, and we have robots that the
Mhm.
X-Men continually throughout the
Well,
episodes sort of make little comments about how, "Oh, we know how to fight robots. We can
they
we
get
can handle this."
yeah, because Wolverine says, "Are you sure we're not on Earth?"
Yeah.
And, they get put in prison, and Wolverine has a plan to break out of prison, and he's like, because they say, like, "We gotta break out of here." Wolverine says, "Just like in the movies," and then he pops his claws and says, "This is gonna hurt me more than you," and he starts yelling traitor and stuff, so he's gonna do and Cyclops is just like, "What? What are you doing?" At first, I thought he was acting, but the way Cyclops is drawn and voice acted, I'm like, no, he has no clue what Wolverine's plan is.
But it works.
It's so funny. It just cracks me up because Wolverine is so happy to do this plan.
Yep, he's gonna do get help.
Basically,
So then while
Storm
this is
stops.
happening,
Storm stops the weather problem.
yes, but it's like she has to be
Yeah.
constantly concentrating
Yep.
to hold back the storm that is happening, and
Yeah.
it's
Hold
a
on
big
to that thought for the
distraction.
net part two.
Yes. So she manages to calm it, the X-Men beat the robots and sort of like.
They get there and she is like, "We just needed to help. It's fine." And then Archon is like, "I have never met anyone like you. You're strong. You're powerful. You should be worshipped. I love you. Will you marry me?" And
Mhm.
Storm is just like,
Oh, it's so
"Yes."
sudden. Yeah, she's really into it because we have seen like she calms the weather and everything, and then she gets
Everybody
celebrated
loves
by
her.
all of
Yep.
the people, and he sort of milks that a little. He's like, "Oh, you could go back home where everybody thinks you're
Does
horrible,
something
or you
like
could
that.
stay
He's like, "Are you
here."
ever, yeah, are you ever praised like this on Earth?" And she's like, "Whoa, no."
Yeah. So, what do you think at this point? Like, Archon clearly a psycho, like we just can see it coming.
Yeah,
But do you think he actually cares about Storm, or is he only using her?
he's only using her.
Do you think? Because, like, why would she have to stay?
Because she's controlling it, but she has to control the weather so he can keep the crystal on. Because we find out in part two that that generator controls the obedience bands,
So she
and
doesn't. So she's
they're
still
robots.
like actively controlling
I
the
assume that's
weather.
it. That she has to keep it controlled.
Okay, but it's a big to be continued with the proposal. That's like the
Yeah.
big dun dun
So
dun.
here's my problem, and it's especially glaring in episode two,
Mhm.
is that in order for this marriage plot to be a plot, Storm has to be dumb.
She's very out of character this whole time.
They try to explain it, and I assume the fact that she's controlling the weather at the same time is part of that explanation. But Wolverine says, when the professor found her, she was being worshipped as a goddess, and that kind of stuff messes with your head.
Yeah.
And so they kind of play on that, I think. But because she's so quick and she says
Mhm.
stuff like, "You made me love you. I love this man." And she's like, "He'll change and he can be changed." And she's like blind to all the signs that we're seeing that the other X-Men are seeing, the way he treats servants and the way everybody's scared. It has to make her just oblivious and
Yeah.
not
Well, you see a lot of
strong.
her trying to convince herself of things, and
Yeah.
I think they're putting a lot of weight on that element of it. But I think if there had been in previous episodes or any amount of lead up showing her being unhappy with
Yeah.
her life on Earth.
Because there are scenes from the series where that has happened. I mean, she was shot out of the sky. But yes, if this episode had opened with them doing something, helping, and like, the normal people throwing tin cans at them
Yeah.
kind of, then sure. And then you make it more about that rather than like, I could grow to love him or
Mhm,
something,
mhm. Yeah.
but this thing, it seems like she's really in love with Archon, and that she really, I don't know,
He's such a
it's
good
not
man and
it's not a
all, yeah.
strong showing for her, and I hate
Yeah.
this planet, and I hate Archon.
Okay, but so now in episode 2,
Uh-huh.
we are
We get a
things are
lot
like
of the
in
Wolverine stuff.
full swing with like
Mhm.
they're preparing for the wedding and they're building enormous statues of Storm, and like we just sort of see little hints here and there of the underbelly with like servants being like weirdly afraid
Yep.
of all of them.
She talks to each one of them about why she's staying, and she goes to
Mhm.
Beast like, "This isn't a decision of the brain, and it's a decision of the heart." And Cyclops, you've always led, and she goes to Wolverine, and he's got his claws out, and he's just like scratching the stone because he's like, "Ah, gee, shucks." And yeah, the rest of this episode, I think you're right that they are kind of playing on that, like they have to be alluding to it because he is so just like he's reacting the same way when like Jean gets married.
Yeah, it feels reminiscent. But yeah,
Yeah.
so she when she talks to each of them, Wolverine is still skeptical. Psyche is just in. He's like, "Yeah,
Yep.
this is beautiful. Love is beautiful, and I think
Yep. It's
that
what
you're making a
he,
great
he's
choice.
still in the honeymoon period.
We're gonna support you 100%."
Yeah.
He's in.
But then the X-Men slowly discover the seedy underbelly and are brought into a kind of a rebellion with it all.
Yeah, because it turns out that there's a laboring class
Yeah.
underneath like the regular population.
They keep calling them servants, but then
Yeah.
Storm finally realizes they're not servants, they're slaves. They're prisoners. They were captured from their closest neighboring planet.
Yeah, and we see Archon do this. Like Archon's like,
Mhm.
"Okay, now that we've stabilized the weather, we can just go back to that our neighboring planet and start kidnapping people and bringing them here to be our slaves."
Yep.
Just like matter of course, everything is normal.
Hey, I didn't say this yet, but Archon is voiced by a Tony Daniels.
Tony Danza?
No, just Tony Daniels. This is the first time we're seeing him appear as a voice actor, but he actually has a pretty long history with the X-Men after and because of this, because he takes over as the voice of Gambit
In the series?
in this series. Yep. When we see Gambit in any other episode after this, it's going to be voiced by Tony Daniels, the original voice actor. I'm pretty sure he had moved to LA. They were supposed to be canceled, so he moved to LA and he wasn't close to the recording studio. But Tony Daniels would continue to voice Gambit in X-Men vs. Street Fighter and Marvel Superheroes vs. Street Fighter in the Marvel vs. Capcom games and X-Men Mutant Academy 1 and 2 and X-Men Next Dimension, all
Wow.
the fighting games. He would also do Wolverine's voice in some of those fighting games.
Hey, so he's in good shape.
Yeah, he played Gambit for a while. I'm pretty sure Next Dimension was the last time he played that role, but
That's cool. Good for him. That's a
oh,
step up from Archon, the one-off.
yep.
Okay, so we keep going and seeing a lot of Jubilee and Storm experiencing the riches of the culture, and then like Wolverine and all of them seeing all of the slaves and people
Mhm.
being afraid and kind of a police state vibe everywhere.
Yep.
And periodically Archon will pop in with Storm and be like, "No, no, no, everything's fine." And Storm will be like, "Why is that servant like freaking out?" And he's like, "No,
Yep.
fine, just look over there. Everything's fine."
Yep.
And Jubilee sort of seems to pick up on things a little bit more, but she's still being pretty
Well,
supportive
she
of.
does say, "I'm not the one you're trying to convince to Storm."
Yeah, she's picking
Uh,
up on stuff.
so we eventually get to the wedding, and the X-Men crash the wedding because no one has come and Storm is a little sad. But then the X-Men show up and it's like a rebellion.
Yeah, and then they fight kind of a situation.
Yep. Eventually, Storm sees the truth. And this is where she says the line like, "You made me love you." And I was like, come on, Storm.
Come on.
But anyways, so she gets very angry and just starts destroying everything. And Jubilee has to talk her down. So I guess Storm, at first, it seemed like she was going to destroy that transmitter or whatever, but she doesn't.
Yeah.
It looked like she was just going to destroy the planet.
Well, I think that she was just trying to undo what she had done to fix things. So just sort of like, I'm not going to be a part of this anymore.
But they stop her because she's like, there's innocent people. You can't let him ruin all this. And so she stops and thanks the X-Men. And she leaves. And Archon is very upset. He's like, but I need you. And she destroys the crystal finally, which solves the weather problem and frees everybody.
Yeah. So that's kind of a parting gift, and then the X-Men leave. I think I could have used a little bit more of them supporting the rebellion or doing something, but I guess they're taking kind of a Prime Directive perspective on this situation because they just withdraw and let things happen as they will.
Yeah.
Once again, not a two-part plotline.
No, and maybe it could be if Storm was played better with this stuff. You know, if that first episode... We come in media res, right?
With the storm happening.
With the storm happening and them all freaking out. If that episode had started, like we had said, with them helping people out and them being treated like they normally are treated, and Storm maybe having a moment where she's like, I'm tired of this. How much do we need to help these people until we're accepted and all this? And we don't get that. But that would have taken up some time with the first episode. And then...
Yeah,
you could still do the like, oh wow, people are happy, and she's remembering she hasn't experienced this before. And then the second episode again would be kind of the same thing, but with a little bit more realism on Storm because it's not so much about her just loving this man right away. It's about her wanting to get away from the crap that they have to take at Earth.
Finding a place for herself where it feels like she's actually contributing and things like that. Yeah, there are ways in which it could work. I also think it's a mistake that she kind of like finds the problem so fast. Like as soon as she gets there, she's like, "Oh, it's this transmitter."
Yeah,
that's causing all your
problems. It's like, well, why do you need this?
Yeah, because he's like, well, it's important for our defense or whatever, and she just accepts that, and that's it. Yeah. So then you have that knowledge the whole time that all you have to do is turn off the stupid thing.
These episodes are so boring for me. This two-parter. I don't know how you feel about it. Maybe you think a little bit kinder of it than I do.
I guess it was fun to watch a different kind of episode because it doesn't follow really the kind of plot lines and themes of most of the other X-Men episodes. So I guess I kind of liked the vignette feel to it. But the fact that Storm is so like sucked in and just stupid about everything was hard, and I just really got impatient with it being two parts. But it was fine. I didn't hate it.
Archon and everything is not in Palabas or whatever you call it.
Polemicus.
Like they're not interesting enough to spend this much time with.
Yeah, that's true.
I usually second guess any X-Men in space stuff, but to have one where it's just like there are no connections to the X-Men or what they stand for or anything, it's like, oh, I can't do this.
Yeah, and they're just going home, and I guess it'll be like nothing ever happened. So, Oh, I didn't say this originally aired November 2nd and 9th in 1996, directed by Larry Houston, written by Mirith Kolau. I should read this ahead of time. And Brooks Wachtel.
I at least sounded out. I mean, I just called it Polemicus. Polemicus is the real
Polemicus
word, right?
Is correct. Yes.
You know what? I hated when he showed up. I was like, oh, it's Archon. I hate that I just know that guy's name. As I get older, I'm losing more and more childhood memories, and I'm realizing it. But the fact that I just have Archon in my head makes me go,
locked
why?
in.
What have I done with my life?
Of something else.
Yep.
That you have lost.
Well, I guess I'm gonna say the episode I preferred of this was the last episode of Wolf's Rain from the OVA, which I felt like was an ambiguous ending, but
Mhm, mhm.
still was emotional. You know, I still got a little choked up.
How did it connect to the plight of the mutants in any way?
A review on Letterbox said if the X-Men were wolves and more melodramatic.
Okay, there's a connection,
So
sure.
yeah.
But next time we are not talking about anime, although we could. We're not going to. The next animated episodes are going to be The Fifth Horseman and Jubilee's Fairy Tale.
Boy, these upcoming episodes are not good.
What's The Fifth Horseman? Is that an apocalypse thing?
Yep. Yeah, I remember both these episodes being slogs. So
Okay.
we'll see.
We are getting through this last season if it kills us.
Yeah, this last season has some rough episodes. I feel like however you feel about it, but that Phalanx two-parter is the high point of this
Oh
season
no,
5.
don't say that.
I could be wrong. Maybe I'll watch something and be like, "Oh, Hidden Agenda was cool," but
We'll
not to my
see.
memories.
We'll see. I
Yeah,
am pretty sure that I have never seen the finale.
it's
So
not much
that'll
either, but
be
we'll get to it.
we'll get there.
By the
All
time
right.
we finish season 5, X-Men 97 will be done and we can just go right into that.
Yeah, plow right through.
Look at that.
You've seen some of that, right? I haven't touched on that yet.
I was gonna ignore it, but I was seeing too many spoilery things on Instagram and stuff. So I was
Mm,
like, I'm just gonna watch it. And I also decided I wanted to watch it without having to watch it with notes.
yeah,
I
I
just
don't know
wanted to
how I'm
watch
gonna
it to
handle
watch it.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's rough because there are some episodes where you're gonna be in it and you're not gonna have your pen to paper. So
Okay. All right. Well, we'll
we'll talk
see
about it
where
when
that
we
goes.
talk about that though.
Yeah.
All right, that was fun.
Thank you to Prophetic Music for our theme song. Previously on X-Men is brought to you by the Radio Meanwhile Network. Other shows on the network include This Endorian Life, 90s Music Got Me Like, and 9021 Here We Go. Follow us on Facebook and be sure to follow the network on Facebook, Instagram, and Threads for info on all of our shows. Please rate, subscribe, or share the show wherever you get your podcasts, and we'll see you next time.
And for Hilary and I's new anime rewatch podcast.
That's next. Once we
That would
finish
be
everything
we
else,
can't do that. No, it would take too long.
just watch
One
all
show is
anime.
20. Yeah, yeah.